Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is here, and so are a bunch of other games that are on sale on Steam right now. CD Projekt Red is going to be hard at work with a new Witcher game in the very near future. We've got 3 demos we featured in previous podcasts to talk about, and now we've played them and we have thoughts. Also, Derren Harrison.
Nick here, and with the way games have been coming out the last few months, I'm pretty sure I have to go to school tomorrow morning.
Hi, I'm Josh, and not only can you not walk around a planet fully, you can't even steal the game anymore.
I'm Andy. This is Video Game Tango.
Wake up, Raven.
No.
Okay,
All
go
right.
back to sleep.
Okay, done.
But first, we got to listen to the podcast.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, compromise. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
I guess I'm hosting this podcast. Welcome to Video Game Tango, the podcast where you can get all the news you need and none of the news you don't, because nothing else is important.
You don't need to welcome them. I've already welcomed them in the thing that we'll record later.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
That's it. You are welcome. Thanks for coming back to Video Game Tango. We're happy to have you here.
It smells like burnt popcorn here.
It does smell like a little bit like
I
burnt
wonder
popcorn.
why.
I think we're having strokes.
I am so... No,
I
you
was
don't get to talk.
thinking it was a stroke. Oh.
No stroking. Because I'm extremely excited. We're going to open this cast with Armored Core 6. Now, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but after 23 years, Baldur's Gate 3 just came out.
Yep.
Sequel to one of the best games ever, not currently being shown on the screen. And I was like, wow, this is what I used to dream of, an amazing version of Baldur's Gate. It took 20 freaking years. And then not but a month later, Armored Core 6 comes out. Now, Armored Core 6 had roughly 18 highly dedicated fans in the early 90s. It was a niche among niche games. A mecha combat third-person fighter shooter somewhere between faster than MechWarrior and slower than Gundam. And I happened to pick up the first one with my friend Sheridan way back in the day, and then quickly bought the second one and the third one, and I loved them.
And then I jumped on that train as well.
Too. And after the third one, which I'm assuming was roughly around 2000, 2001, I didn't play anymore. They started being like Xbox only, and I didn't have an Xbox at that point. And the quality kind of tanked. But, excuse me, now 20-something years later.
And FromSoftware is a completely changed company, essentially, at this point.
The same people that brought you Dark Souls and Demon Souls and Elden Ring and Bloodborne.
But before all of that, there was Armored Core.
There was Armored Core. This game, I really think that only a company like FromSoftware, the Japanese school of design, could have managed to come out with a game that feels so much in its soul like those old games without not only compromising modern day sensibilities and usability, but still managing to capture that feel of these late 90s mecha games. I cannot stress or find the words enough to explain how intensely nostalgic I've been over the last 2 days playing this game, because given the updated graphics and given the change of times and sensibilities in gaming, this still feels like Armored Core. And that's all I wanted, and it's been given to me in bounds. It's not extremely fast-paced. It's definitely not slow. It's not nearly as difficult as Dark Souls, but it's not easy. And I have loved every minute of it. Even the 3 to 4 hours I spent painting and customizing the decals on my mech, just to lose the next mission. Because that's something you can do. If you really want to, you can customize your mech to the nth degree, right? Maybe not the nth square degree like you used to do back in the 90s when numbers were the thing, but it's enough that, if that's what you're into, the game lets you do it. I don't even know where to begin. If you know nothing about Armored Core, the storylines change between games, but they're usually highly brutalistic, far future, semi-post-apocalypse. Either AI is controlling the world or nuclear war. In this particular game, we've colonized nearby star systems, and there's this planet that had a special MacGuffin resource on it called Coral, and then there was some cataclysmic event that essentially glassed the planet, and it is now this post-brutalist architecture factory world that companies and mercenaries are fighting over to extract and figure out exactly what Corals is, this Fires of Rubicon as it's known colloquially. And you are a mercenary, free agent working for the highest bidder doing your best to fight other mechs, to take down artillery targets, giant walking tanks that are hundreds and hundreds of feet tall, flying attack helicopters, assaulting dams. Those are only like the first 4 or 5 missions. One thing they've managed to do is keep some of the great ideas from Elden Ring and Dark Souls that newer players are getting used to, the idea of quickly restarting from checkpoints, having the ability to heal in mission and swap your loadout if you die or want to mid-mission, which used to not be the case. Overall, I think it's probably a better design choice because, again, this is a niche game. I mean, as well as this is getting reviewed, as well as doing, it's, I think, opening weekend hit 140, 180,000 concurrent Steam players, whereas Elden Ring had almost 1 million. Like, this is never going to do as well as more mainline games from FromSoft. But they didn't have to go so hard in the paint, and they did anyways.
Yeah.
The game, much like most Dark Souls games, opens up immediately with a tutorial mission, giving you the barest bones information on how to control your mech, and having you very quickly, within about 5 minutes, running into the first boss. This is the Udex Gundyr, the not Capra Demon. It is the boss from essentially like Dark Souls or Demon Souls. It's telling you, if you cannot beat this boss in 5, 10, 20 attempts, probably not your game. That said, not nearly as difficult as the Dark Souls games. That is not the point of this. But it does have its own ways of difficulty. It took me 2 attempts to beat the first boss once I realized the game wanted you to be highly aggressive. I was playing way too defensively. And yeah, ever since then, you know, I'm earning money. You get to replay missions, try to increase your rank on a given mission, much Devil May Cry, Hitman style, and you get to just continuously earn money if you want to grind money out to buy parts. The money and that kind of part of the game is not nearly as important as it used to be. You used to be able to go into debt, and it was a big deal. But again, modern sensibilities. It's, you know, you're removing quote unquote realism for ease of play, and I think it works better.
It's much more approachable at the very least, right?
Much more approachable than the old Armored Core games were. Now, there is one problem, which it's kind of hard to like lay the blame anywhere, but this game has a lot of controls. There's walking, there's jet walking, there's boosting, and there's assault boosting. There's like 4 different types of movement, not even including jumping, which I guess is 5. On top of having 4 different weapon slots and your tertiary buttons, meaning that even on the keyboard, having 2 thumb mouse buttons, I'm finding myself wishing I had like even more mouse buttons because this is a fast-paced game. It's not Street Fighter level fast, but it is fast, and having to, you know, remove like your left hand from the keyboard or the analog stick if you're using controller or press buttons can cost you some precious life points, known as armor points in this game. It takes a while to get used to. I had to maneuver around my controls and go through the training, which I'll get to in a minute. But eventually you get the hang of it, and it feels fantastic. When you're boosting at 300 miles an hour, juking left and right missiles that are coming in, and you've got a big-ass laser sword and a grenade launcher on your shoulder, I'm gutturally laughing out loud in some of these fights as I win them, that euphoric feeling. It's not a game for everybody. It never has been, and they have not tried to make it a game for everybody. But I'm pretty confident the majority of people who don't think they're interested in this would try it. They're probably going to enjoy themselves. Yeah. It is a great middle ground between like the brutally difficult Dark Souls games and something like Devil May Cry or God of War, right? You definitely still get that power fantasy being this ultra powerful mech, but the game's not going to hand it to you, right? There's no quick time events in this game. No iframes. You can dodge stuff, but you have to physically dodge it. You don't get any little invincibility moments like you do in Bloodborne and whatnot. So it's less about trying to not get hit and more about trying to be efficient with your movement. I'm loving it to death. There are some complaints. I've read a few reviews. I'd say roughly half of them are missing the point and half of them are kind of on brand. The ones that are missing the point were noticeably talking about how the game doesn't give you a tutorial and makes you fight a hard boss. Well, it does give you a tutorial, but you didn't take the time to practice.
Right.
Because it's not taught to us that, oh, I'm in a starting room, there's not a lot of enemies. I should spend literally 5 minutes just flying around, getting used to the 4 different types of movement so that it becomes to feel a bit natural. And then the first boss you fight, if you don't play the way the game wants you to and be highly aggressive, it's going to kick your shit in, right? Because this game is telling you certain bosses have certain mechanics, and if you aren't willing to work around them and you're just trying to headbutt your way through it, you're going to have a bad time. So is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. I think it's a valid point. Some people are realizing this game isn't for them.
Yes.
Right? Other people have less real criticisms. I've seen a lot of higher level reviewers complaining about the lack of color and the art design being bleak and brutalistic. And that is Armored Core. Armored Core has never been a happy game. Every
advertised.
Every game is a dystopian future of corporatocracy and extraterritoriality, and you are a free market merc who works for nothing but money. And there is no happiness in this world. It is kill or be killed, biggest shark in the pond. And given, now diegetically sure, but given that this takes place on a planet that was annihilated by some kind of cosmic supernova at a nuclear apocalypse, and the planet was essentially a factory world, yeah, there's not going to be a lot of color.
Yeah.
This isn't Baldur's Gate 3. This isn't Cyberpunk, right? This is
dystopian.
Dystopian future as it gets. And if you really want color, you can color your mech.
Yeah.
You make it lime green.
Yep.
You can put a unicorn on it. The game will let you do that. So some real complaints, some not. But I just wanted to gush about how well I think they did with this game. You know, they could have tried to make it super true to the old games and it wouldn't have done nearly as well. They could have completely gotten rid of the core feel of Armored Core and made a much more approachable game, and it would have been forgotten in 6 months. But for Armored Core 6 fans, all you Ravens out there, I'm sure you're loving it just as much as I am. If this interests you at all, the idea of a sci-fi God of War or a post-apocalypse Devil May Cry is kind of similar in the combat. I highly recommend you check it out. So
Definitely. Now, so I haven't played yet, but I have been checking reviews. And most of the reviews are glowing. Now, I have a question for you. Have you done much PvP yet?
None yet. I have not unlocked it.
So I was going through the regular reviews, and most of them were talking about the campaign, and YouTube recommended a video talking specifically about the PvP in the game.
Okay.
And for me, what gives a game longevity, especially something with a campaign that, as I understand, is relatively short, though there is reason to go into New Game Plus, to my understanding, is like they're actually
the game has a New Game Plus mode. You play back through it, and there's new stuff unlocked.
Yeah, new missions that weren't available previously, and even more story apparently that wasn't available in your first playthrough.
Real quick, one thing I forgot to mention. I didn't learn this until today. You get multiple missions offered to you at a time, and apparently, depending on the order you do them, changes things. For example, I had a giant, like what amounted to a Bagger 288 mining vessel with legs that I had to destroy for a company. And if I'd done missions in the other way around, I would have had to protect it. And I thought that was kind of neat. Again, you're a mercenary for hire. Like, you don't have a given side unless you heavily choose missions for like one company over another.
Sure.
But anyways, you were saying.
Super cool. What I'm getting from this is the PvP is nearly flawless. Because,
really?
Yeah. So, and this is coming from, this review was from a FromSoft veteran. He never played an Armored Core game before.
Okay. Enjoyed
PvP in the other FromSoft games. So Elden Ring PvP, and then the later Dark Souls games where you could jump in and do PvP.
Yeah.
And he's like, as much as I enjoyed those and thought that was an amazing time, he's like, this is PvP perfection. You never miss a shot due to iframes. So it's not trying to outwit the other player by clever use of iframes, which is essentially what high-level PvP boils down to in the other FromSoft games. Yeah.
Yeah.
And while that's got, a pretty hardcore skill ceiling and everything, this is very different. It straight up comes down to your loadout and skill. and they've spent the review was done today, and they spent all of yesterday live streaming PvP events. And like they're talking about like maining this as their Twitch game for a little while so they can do cool events like a PvP tournament.
Yeah.
And when you get that level of excitement in a player base that can drive the second review that I'm talking about is Asmongold in particular. When you can get somebody with such a large audience so engaged and excited about something like a PvP tournament in a game, that's exciting to me because then you have, player agency and player-driven content.
Yeah.
And I'm all about it. But, the other things that the two reviewers, including Asmongold, talked about the PvP was that it is just insanely fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, something like, now that you mention it, watching the trailer here, it looks purpose built for PvP.
Yeah.
Like that's like
What's
going to be the most fun thing to do.
One thing this game, I mean, for better or worse, depending on which Armored Core you're playing, it's always done a pretty good job of balancing the extreme options you have for your mech. So you get to build your mech piece by piece, legs, core, arms, reactor, booster, targeting module, your 4 different weapon slots between your arms and your shoulders. And in this game in particular, if you look at the stats of a weapon or a leg slot or whatever, it gives you the basic, how much armor does it have? How much does it weigh? How much does it cost you energy-wise from like your reactor? And that's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Or you can press a button, F on the PC, and it opens up 50 different stats. Do you want to know exactly how much this affects the duration that your quick boost lasts? Do you want to know exactly how much this affects your aiming between 0 and 80 meters? Those numbers are there, but you don't have to look at them.
Right.
But that said, you can build the lightest, quickest mech with tiny little machine guns and a dagger that flies literally twice as fast as a heavy mech. Or you can make a mech who literally has tank treads, has 2 grenade launchers for arms and chain guns on his shoulders. And I couldn't tell you which one would win in a fight.
Yeah.
Right? So much of it comes down to not only player skill, but being efficient with your loadout, because you have this all-in-one resource that is your boost energy. And every time you dodge a shot or assault boost or do these things, that bar runs down. And until you land and spend a few seconds on ground, it doesn't recharge. So it allows for that really great PvP element, which is monitoring your opponent's resource expenditure and knowing when to strike.
Yeah.
This game has a stagger mechanic like all Armored Core games have. It's much more apparent than the older ones. But a lot of this game is even in single player, is hitting your enemies at the right time, maxing out their stagger bar so then you can then crit them for free with heavy hitting weapons. And the enemy's trying to do that to you at the same time.
For sure.
So I'm really glad to hear the PvP is great. I'm excited to try it out. It's going to be much like Dark Souls PvP in that like sometimes you're going to come across no-lifers that are going to kick your shit in.
For sure.
You have to, quote unquote, get good.
Yep.
I mean, these games still have that element, still a FromSoftware game. Your skill is going to determine 90% of the outcome, and your build only makes up that little bit extra, really, in my opinion. So,
and you have to be good at the like. I love that dichotomy because you can change your build so significantly, going from heavy, light, or somewhere in between, and changing weapons. But you have to get good at all of them, right? Like if you want to be the best PvPer, then you're going to have to know how to play all of those.
Anyone who's played Dark Souls or Bloodborne or Demon Souls knows that you fight like the initial tutorial boss and they wreck you, and then you eventually get 10, 20, 30 hours in the game, and you go back and you play the tutorial boss, and it's like taking a walk through the park.
Yeah.
And nothing has changed but your knowledge of the game and your muscle memory and your skill, right? The boss isn't any mechanically easier. You just have gotten good.
You're just
and
better.
You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And this is the same way. You get to replay these missions to earn money, and every time I replay it, I'm trying new loadouts, and it's getting smoother and smoother and faster, and you start to get to show off a little bit. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the only thing that stops your improvement is you hit your skill ceiling, and I that just caters to me so well.
Yeah.
So yeah, while I haven't played it yet, it's a definite for me. I will be playing this really soon.
I do believe it is near full price, $60.
Yep.
I believe. So it's a pretty penny. if you're on the fence, watch some videos. Vadi Vidya, Vaati Vidya, who was a really big Dark Souls, Elden Ring lore guy, got heavily into Armored Core. He's played through them. We're currently watching him attempting to S-rank all the Chapter 1 missions on stream here. He's got a really amazing beginner tutorial video that I don't think you need to watch before you play the game. If you want to, you can. But after you finish the tutorial mission, it's probably worth watching through because it's an actual tutorial. It's not like he's telling you, oh, here's the best build for this mission. Oh, this thing's OP. He's like, here's why the game is warning you about quick boosting in this specific scenario. Here's why this missile launcher is good in this scenario, and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of really good videos already out there for it.
Yeah. And or maybe if you've started the game and you find yourself a little bit frustrated, maybe worth checking out for sure. So I'm glad you're having a blast with it. I'm glad the people at large seem to be really enjoying themselves. It seems like Armored Core 6 is everything we hoped it would be. I know we've talked a lot about it on the lead up to.
So excited when they teased it. Like a year ago
for
now.
sure. I started to well up a little bit when I realized what we were watching in the first trailer. And so super excited to get my hands on it, and I will be playing it soon as well.
One last thing, and this amused me to no end. In that tutorial mission, you're looking for a downed mech that has a license that you can hack and steal because you're currently unlicensed and illegally on the planet. And you finally find one, and the narrator is like, I think this one is the one. It's registered, and it looks like its call sign name is ... And then the boss shows up, and when you beat it, it says, turns out the call sign name is Raven, which is what they called you in the first Armored Core game. You don't get to earn that name until you beat the boss. I thought that was
cool.
like perfect timing.
That's awesome.
That's nice.
I love that.
Nice little touch.
Well, speaking of games that you should be buying,
Yes,
Josh has a solid list on Steam.
I do. I have I keep my ear to the ground when it comes to these Steam sales. So this year, in addition to the big seasonal sales, Winterfest, summer sales, all that stuff.
Autumn Equinox.
Autumn Equinox, autumn of savings.
It's a circus of value.
Steam has also been doing more genre-focused sales. So just a couple of weeks ago, they did the Valve-owned storefront and slash prices on visual novel games. So this time round, it's strategy games. So, guys, there are a bunch of great deals. Now, this sale is going to be lasting from August 28th to September 4th. So it's just a little guy, but we're smack dab in the middle of it by the time you're listening to this. So plenty of time to grab in on some of these. Now, guys, there's a game in here that we've actually already talked about, Frostpunk. That made the honorable mentions a couple of times on the cast. It is 80% off. You can go pick that up for $6.
So worth it.
I mean, right? Just give it a try.
Good game.
Give it a try. So there are a bunch of really cool games. We got Symphony of War coming in at 33% off. And then, of course, some older games. Sid Meier's Colonization, $3.50. $3.50.
Even that game's worth $3.50.
Right? So there's a lot of really and a lot of classic games, a good list. And you have still just a little over a week to go pick some of these games up.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love deals.
I love deals too.
And under $5.
Steam has been throwing them out. Yeah, there's quite a few.
Yeah, especially when it's under $5. It's just a get, right?
Like, it is.
For so many games, I've picked up games that I'd never heard of, and simply because they were like $2.50, $3.50, $5, I've been like, I'll give it a try. Just based on the Steam page, looks like it might be up my alley. And they've been awesome. So
now, if you already own some of these games, like Europa Universalis 4, Crusader Kings, a lot of their DLCs are also on sale right now. So if you got the base game and one or two DLCs, now's the time to stock up, get a few more, and it really changes the game. So yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's
exciting. You like your
time
RTSs? You like your strats?
Any Stellaris DLC on sale?
Oh, I didn't honestly see Stellaris specifically mentioned, but it generally, when Paradox throws in its other games, most of its stuff goes on sale. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Contact and Paragons. I don't have those yet.
Well, hopefully they're on sale.
Hopefully.
Well, you know what's better than cheap?
Scorpions.
I was going to say free, but
Yeah,
you're not wrong.
yeah.
So free right now are a few demos that I happen to have played. The first of which is a little game called Arctic Awakening. Now, I'll tell you right off the bat,
Is this about diseases from the permafrost being released into the world?
that would be awesome. It's not.
Oh.
No, what it is about though is it's a first-person narrative adventure set in the unforgiving Arctic. Your plane crashed in a storm, leaving only your court-mandated therapy bot for company as you journey to find your co-pilot and uncover the mysteries buried beneath the ice.
Okay.
So the vibe that I get from this is a bit Firewatch,
Ooh, okay.
which is fine.
I loved Firewatch.
I'm not as big into the
Story heavy narrative.
I can't even say that because I do like plenty of games like that. Firewatch didn't get its claws into me, at least not in the beginning. Neither did Arctic Awakening. Now I could see where it's going, and I can imagine being captivated by it.
Okay.
So you start out the issue here is the demo is short, and that is going to be a theme of the demos that I'm talking about. Now,
He's got his linen watch on in the corner of that trailer over here.
so the game is interesting in that this is kind of a post climate change. This is the year is like 2062.
It's got a court mandated therapy bot.
He's got a
it's
court-
in the near future.
Yeah, court mandated therapy bot. You crash your plane somewhere in tundra of Alaska. Now, as far as I understand from the brief narrative that you're given in the beginning of the game, is this is well into climate change. This is well into the seas starting to take over everywhere.
Florida's gone.
And this guy just happened to, several years before the shit really hit the fan, buy a float plane. And
Okay.
when he bought the float plane, he found that he became super useful. So the guy spends all of his time flying food and necessities to people in need.
Okay.
And that's my understanding of the main character, the protagonist that you play. You have a co-pilot with you who is only really with you for the first 3 minutes of intro sequence into the game. And then he gets thrown out of the back of the plane. So you crash land with your court-mandated therapy bot. You are essentially doing a survival game. You're getting food, you need warmth, that kind of thing. Your therapy bot is there to help you. My complaints with
Not
the game.
physically, just mentally, of course. Emotionally speaking.
So the therapy bot is useless, completely useless, other than it acts
Provides
as a
therapy.
well, yes, and acts as a flashlight during the demo.
Okay.
And that's because the therapy bot has rules, and the rules are that it cannot go so far away from its court mandated person in need of therapy, and that it
okay.
can't be too helpful in scenarios that might be good in acts of therapy towards the individual. So it's expressed by the bot that this need to survive may be just what he needs in order to fix himself, right?
Okay.
It's kind of a weird premise to give this thing, because I would have preferred something that was going to be a little bit more helpful or that furthered the narrative, which I expect later in the game is what it does, but you get almost no time with this bot. The thing shuts down like 3 times during the demo,
Okay.
which is weird. It
That's an odd choice.
It just shut down in the video that we're watching of it. You find yourself in the tundra of Alaska. Some weird stuff happens. Like you think there might be a bear nearby because you hear some scruffing, some bear-like sounds, and then it's told to you instead of maybe explained later or something. But it's told to you by your own character's narration that I don't think that was a bear. So you start to wonder if there's like some extraterrestrial or something going on, because as you inspect your float plane that's crash landed, the nose is like perfectly shorn off. The rear of the plane is perfectly shorn off. None of your instrument panels work anymore. And it feels like the game is trying a little too hard for this to be like almost a therapeutic walk through the woods more than it is any kind of survival or really any kind of gameplay. The gameplay is lacking. That would be my biggest complaint. I could see myself still enjoying this game given a little bit more, but the demo really didn't do this game any favors, in my opinion. Too short. By the time that you see anything interesting at all, other than barren wilderness, the game demo ends.
Oh.
That's literally where it ends, is when you find the interesting thing. So you see it, and it says, thanks for playing our demo. That said, if you're into that like heavy narrative story-driven game, such as a game like Firewatch, this might be for you. It wasn't for me. So while it sounds like I'm reviewing the game, and I'm just giving my 2 cents in the little time that I got to play with it. I played it twice. One time just to play it, and the second time to record some footage. In my second playthrough, because I did know what I was doing, it only took me 18 minutes to get to the demo. In the first playthrough, it took me 34 minutes. Okay. That is too short of a demo for me when the idea of this game is to deliver you story. I got none out of it other than I've crash landed and found a thing. So my major complaint isn't necessarily with the game, it's with the length of the demo. The demo should have gone just a little bit further. Like maybe explain to me what the cool thing is before the demo ends.
Or, I was going to say, giving you a little more of a taste, right? Because you've played the demo and you're not sure if you're playing a survival game or a walk in the woods simulator or
yes,
something therein of
you were not able to play this game long enough to find out what this game is,
right? And that's the whole point of the demo, right? Is to give you a taste to see if this is for me because I know what I'm getting, or it's for me, I know what I'm getting, right?
In my opinion, when it comes to demos, you've got an axis. Well, not axis. You got 2 reasons to make a demo. One, you want to show off your gameplay.
Yeah.
This is a video game. Here's our gameplay for this game. If your gameplay is good enough, people will then want to pay for it because the gameplay is fun. 2, you want to hook the player, whether that's through narrative or intrigue or comedy or whatever your genre has, that they want more of the story or the animation or whatever it is that you're trying to sell them. There's a sticky wicket when it comes to these walking simulators, which is the click wheel term for them, in that if your game is almost entirely narrative and story, and there's very little actual game there, if your narrative isn't set up to have an hour worth of intriguing setup, then your demo naturally has to be short.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't have a good stopping point. It's like, how much do we really want to give away?
Yeah.
Because if some people find out, it wasn't a bear, it was a monster or an alien, that might alienate, no pun intended, a bunch of their audience. Oh, I don't care for monsters. I don't care for aliens. I don't care, So, it's a rough spot. It doesn't mean it's not doable.
Totally.
Right?
I understand where the developers may have been in a rough spot in order to deliver a demo. So you're right. It is a tough spot because they could have, the next plot point could have been the deep part of the narrative, right? Absolutely could have been.
But that's their choice to write the game that way.
Exactly.
Right? No one's forcing them to do that.
Right. But the issue at the end of the day, the issue that I have is not necessarily with the game. It is with the demo. Now, some things about the game that I have to say is every action you take is a small cutscene.
A little animated.
Yes. The game, for me speaking, is overly animated. To do a quick jump is like a 3-second thing. If you want to pick something up off the ground, you have to left click it, you get an animation, and then you're given an option to keep, drop, and I think that's it. It gives you an item description, keep and drop. You hit E to keep it, you left click again to drop it. That's all fine and great, but if you keep it, there's an animation of you putting it in your jacket or whatever, and then you can start moving again. Or there's an animation of you bending over and dropping a thing back in place, and then raising your hand again.
And these are all moments you're losing control of your character.
Yes, and one thing that I dislike, unless it's for a cutscene or important, I don't like loss of control of my character. especially in what feels like a survival scenario. It feels like time is of the essence. I want to complete the objectives that the game has written out for me as quickly and efficiently as possible. That's what happens naturally in my brain. I have a problem with optimization and that kind of thing. But there were issues as far as how often I felt like I was taken out of the game while I was playing it.
Honestly, watching like you started talking about it, and the more I've watched it, this grabbing thing, and then the keep, drop, top, what. Of course I want to fucking keep it. I picked it up in the fucking first place, didn't I? Why are you fucking asking me? Like, dude, that's bothering me. The longer I watch it, the more bothered I am by that. Because there's 20 items being picked up on the trailer here, and it's
each one is now a two-step process.
Each one is a two-step process, and it's like that should just be quick clicking, and it's just I don't need to see him grab it to put it in the bag even. Yeah. It should just be, I've taken that and it's just in my bag now. It
really is an issue because you just crash landed in the middle of nowhere during a blizzard.
Wow.
And you, like, survival instinct tells you I should pick up all of this food that's laying about in case I need it. Mm-hmm. There was never a time in the course of the demo that I needed it. In fact, I got no mechanic as far as thirst, hunger, sleep, any of the typical survival elements that you normally see in these games.
It just feels very tedious.
It felt tedious.
Even in it, like, your demo shouldn't feel tedious. Okay, all right.
That would be my biggest complaint of the gameplay, was that it takes a long time to do anything. Your movement is really slow, which makes sense. You're in the middle of frozen Alaska. It makes sense that your movement takes a while. But when there are so many what looks like points of interest just in this small area that we've seen so far, which is essentially the trench that you landed in, that encompasses like 75% of the entire game of the demo is this spot. You spend probably 20 out of 30 minutes in a demo in the same spot.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying that's a game killer for me. But it killed the demo experience for me for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. But that is what I have to say about Arctic Awakening. Again, I think it's for the right person. This could be like an ace in the hole. Not for me though.
Yeah, it's gonna kind of keep in line with the game I'm gonna talk about, which. It's not easy making video games. They're such a multidisciplinary thing, and you have to consider the gamut A to Z of animations to zebras, right? It's like
totally,
narrative, sound design, all these things. I have a overall mildly negative relationship with the next game, which I played through in its entirety. I picked it up due to in almost entirely the genre this game takes place in. So the game I played was Black Skylands. It's a little indie game. I do believe it's the first game of the studio. They previously released essentially a demo version of the game, but watching through the credits, there's one name that pops up in like every category: programmer, artist, sound designer, lead director, all these things. Mm-hmm. This is a company of 30 to 50 people, but this is clearly the passion project of one guy.
Okay.
Now, I had a bit of a unique experience because I wasn't aware until I had almost beaten the game that the game had gone through a major overhaul roughly before this release state that it's in now, which removed a vast amount of content mm-hmm. in exchange for polish, which is a very interesting and bizarre choice. So this game is floating islands, dirigibles, full-on steampunk gameplay. It is fantastic. I love that genre. It's crunchy. It's satisfying. It is candy to me, right? You get a little floating dirigible that you get to upgrade, and you have like side cannons and a little deck cannon that you get to upgrade and swap out. Different ships. But on top of flying around and having air-to-air combat with aliens and bugs and other planes and pirates, you land on these floating islands, and then take them over kind of Assassin's Creed or Far Cry style. You know, you have to kill all the enemies and claim the island, and then the people can take it back over. Because his general story is that there's a bunch of political factions, and in this small area you're in, a bunch of pirates have taken over and have been keeping people from getting messages out that are being attacked by pirates. So you as the new marshal have to come in and save them. But there is an underlying secret B plot that gets slowly developed through the game. We're watching an anime style trailer for it, which is interesting because it leads into another thing I talk about. The game is pixel based, and for the most part, it's entirely top down.
Yeah.
There are cinematic cutscenes that are pixel based, and they're hand drawn, and they're very, very pretty. There's only a few in the game, and they change art styles.
Interesting.
It's like, especially in the end of the game, there's a couple like really high quality ones, but they're definitely like a different time or a different artist that made them. But the problem is that this game is about 20 hours long. And it's a blast for the first 3 to 5 hours. And then suddenly, although the polish is there and everything is still just these crunchy bite-sized islands you're taking over and upgrading things, you realize you've done everything in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still more to do, but none of it is new. You can continue upgrading your weapons, and it's not a complicated upgrade system, but it's not super simple either, and it's fun. And a lot of the puzzles or platforming puzzles earn you new upgrades. And there's always that, like, I got one more island I clear, I only need to kill 10 more enemies. So really chunky little bite-sized, the Pavlovian things. But I looked and I had one mission where I had to find a thing and I couldn't find it, looked it up. And the guide I found on Steam was mentioning resources and mechanics and weapons in the game that didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is he talking about? And looking more into it, yeah, they cut a lot of content from the game.
Interesting.
Because a lot of the like weapon upgrades and upgrading your father's ship, your home base, involved a lot of different resources, like, you know, raising cattle and growing plants and, you know, finding iron mines and doing all this, that in the end ended up in the same result to what we have now, which is just a simple red steel goes to your ship, blue steel goes to your weapons. So was it a good thing to cut content that seems superfluous? So in any kind of resource game, you have chains, right? You need to cut trees to get timber. Timber becomes lumber. Lumber becomes planks. Planks become buildings. You can cut some of those out, right? You know, it might be more realistic, but is it fun? So I think the idea was we have all these multiple chains in our economy and our resource, but they're just too much.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. But then you've got a 20-hour game, which was about the right time for this game. I mean, honestly, I felt even if there had been more stuff, it probably could have been better at like 10 or 15 hours, just the way the story went. But yeah, it's just immediately within 3 to 5 hours, you're like, okay, I'm now starting to do the same stuff over and over again. It's a really baffling choice to me to cut potentially what is essentially a way to progress in the game, I guess just for more time for polish, which is probably a good thing. There's next to no bugs in the game. I mean, obviously I had a little complaints. Every time you like beat an island, it goes into this cutscene of you taking it over and there's fireworks and it's like a 30-second cutscene you can't skip. And there's like 20 islands in the game.
Yeah.
Which is not often you do that, but you've seen it once, now you have to see it 20 more times.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of plays like Zelda. It's fun. It feels really bite-sized and I like it. But I don't know if I can recommend people to spend $20 on it.
Yeah.
On top of that, now this, I don't want to be phobic or anything because I haven't looked into this, but it's something to be mildly conservative. Fully Russian developers. I don't know anything about their company. I haven't looked into it. Just because they're Russian developers doesn't mean they don't deserve money. But it's one of those situations where I'd probably want to check to make sure they're not being funded by some higher level thing, because I don't want to be paying for a war.
Right.
You know, it's just
I already pay taxes.
I already have to do that for
enough of America's wars. I don't need to pay for another country.
With my entertainment money as well. So that's a really small thing, but it is something worth pointing out.
That's something to think about, certainly.
But yeah, like I enjoyed it, but it's one of those games kind of like yours where it's like, some people are really, really going to like this.
Yeah.
And it's got that nice mix of like fun action-based combat and also this cozy feel of upgrading your base and your plane and flying around and exploring stuff. But it's just not enough there.
Sure.
You know?
So. And that's why we don't do like full-on reviews. we just give our input on it, right? Like
Yeah.
we talk about it to our taste. So, and I think that's an important differentiation between like doing that and giving something like a numerical score.
Yeah.
I don't really ever want to find myself giving a numerical score to a game because everybody's tastes are
Games
different.
are more
Yeah,
intricate than that.
I would rather explain the gameplay loop and the graphics, the sound design, and then let you make up your own mind while I share my opinion. So while I may have spoken words that sway you one way or another, I'm not here to tell you what to buy and what not to buy. That's a subjective thing. And I know that I have very unique tastes when it comes to video games.
Yeah. I mean, final verdict on this, if you love Zelda-style games, top-down, pixel-based, especially puzzle platformers, action platformers, you love ship-to-ship combat, you don't mind janky scuff story, and you don't mind $20 for a 20-hour game, $1 per hour, you'll enjoy this game. Just be aware that after the first 3 to 5 hours, you're going to be doing the same thing for another 15. All you're doing now at this point is advancing the story.
I'm sorry. It just feels to me like that's the indie market's a weird place to be doing that, to cut content for polish. That seems more like a mainline AAA kind of a move. Like
it was
this
is a really unique thing.
This is the kind of place like in this market where it's like, no, it's pixelated. It's what it is. Buy it, play it, enjoy it, or don't. So that does feel like a very strange move to cut.
It's not often you hear about indie companies be like, you know what, we have too much content in this game, and the game's releasing in 6 months. Let's scrap 60% of it and just make sure there's no bugs and that it's really pretty and runs well. Not a bad decision, just extremely unique.
Sure,
right?
Maybe they're really thinking about growth. Like it's like clearly it's a passion project, but we want people to be talking about this. We want to show. I could see maybe. But
I think this is one of those games that could potentially have a killer sequel.
Sure.
Now that they've like kind of figured out, because they do have some kind of mildly unique from mechanics. You get a grappling hook and like jumping off of islands to grapple to another one. Even
Sounds
like
fucking
mid-combat.
cool.
It's easy to do and it's fun. Like boarding other ships is totally a thing you can do. So like there's a lot of fun, unique stuff in there, but just not enough of it.
Yeah.
Anyways, Josh, you got something for us?
Yes. So recently, CD Projekt Red gave us an update on the size of its development teams currently engaged on some of their projects. So right now, as of the end of July, I shouldn't say right now, it's probably gone down a little bit, but Phantom Liberty had nearly 300 people working on that project. The CEO of CD Projekt Red, I'm not even going to attempt to say his name. It is
Derek.
It's Adam, and then it's very Polish after that. So I'm not gonna try. At the end of July, the Phantom Liberty team had 300 people working on it. When Phantom Liberty releases in just a little over a month, a large portion of those people of that team is going to be moved to Project Polaris, which, as we know, is the first game in the new Witcher trilogy. So that was kind of announced at the end of last year and fall of last year that they were working on a new mainline game or mainline series for The Witcher. Right now, Project Polaris, which is, again, the code name for it, has 260 employees already on it. And then at the end of the month, or in a little over a month, rather, it's going to have a whole bunch more guys coming
people.
in. It could be upwards of 500 devs working on one game. One game. How cool is that? It was also revealed somewhat recently that the new Witcher series, is going to be using Unreal 5 instead of the I'm not going to try it again.
The proprietary engine.
Yep, that one, Red, their Red engine, which has powered the previous Witcher games and Cyberpunk. So a lot, boy, if you're a Witcher and now Witcher fans, we need some good news recently. Haven't even bothered watching the third season. I've seen nothing but sad reviews there. And of course, we got season 4 with Hemsworth. Yeah. So this is for us Witcher fans, guys. Some good news out there for it. And there's going to. They also, CD Projekt Red also said that they will be releasing all 3 games of this series within a 6-year span. So that is, I mean, that's
a big promise.
That's a big promise. That's a big promise. So I'm excited to see what's gonna keep happening here. I'm gonna be keeping my ear to the ground for y'all out there. But yeah, that's exciting news.
That doesn't mean more mandatory crunch.
Yeah.
Well, like that to me, it seems like when you're bringing in that many people to like, that's really sharing the load. Like they're trying to avoid that kind of a crunch, right? Or
that's the size of a Blizzard team for any of their games. Like Hearthstone had 500 people working on it in earlier patches. So
okay, I guess that's fair.
Higher ups and money people tend to think, oh, we have more people. That means we can do even more work.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now it is CD Projekt Red, and they've been anti-crunch since like the beginning.
They've had a little bit of problems with it.
They did during the development of Cyberpunk when they realized they had kind of shafted themselves with release date.
Yeah.
Well,
that said, they have been true to their word about allowing people to keep working from home. They've allowed that to keep going. You know, time will only tell like how true that remains, but especially going back to a franchise like The Witcher after what was effectively a lame duck with Cyberpunk. Not that it didn't do good sales, it didn't do what they expected though.
Yeah.
Well, and let's be honest. When Cyberpunk was first launched, those people were getting death threats. That if they were like, if you delay this game again, I'm going to find you and your kids, and I'm gonna unalive you. So like people were getting legit death threats over the game not being released. So like I feel like hopefully CD Projekt Red has learned a bit, like not its lesson about releasing a game on time. Not that, but that buck expectations of when this game's going to be done. Like if you say
you don't have to do it in 6 years.
You don't have to do it in 6 years. If it takes 7 to get or 8 or 10 to get these games done correctly, then that's fine.
Dude,
and everybody should just accept that.
If Final Fantasy fans can wait 4 years between episodes of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and
I went
then
23 years for Baldur's Gate 3, okay?
Yeah, you know.
Shut your goddamn mouth.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, this is a game that already existed at one point, and the remake is going to be at least 3 episodes, and it's 4 years between the last game and the upcoming game. Then shut the fuck. Just wait. Wait for a good game to come out. Just give it the time it needs to bake, man. Let it cook. Speaking of cooking.
Cooking Mama 7?
No, game
Jesse,
about guns.
It's time to cook.
So the next demo that I played this week is a game called Soul Slinger Envoy of Death.
We talked about this one last week. This one rustled our jimmies.
It did.
Collectively.
And again, I played through the demo twice. One just to play it and one to get some gameplay footage of it. And my first experience was not great. Before that, in Envoy of Death, you are a gunslinger in limbo, involved in a gritty war against the Cartel, a ruthless organization harvesting souls to break free of the shackles of the afterlife. Grow stronger with each new run, gather the essence of lost souls to take on the biggest threats in this roguelite FPS. So, it is a roguelite. It is an FPS. It does take place in limbo. You are captured in limbo because your soul has been fragmented due to things that happened to you just before your death. So you have a few goals here. One is to find somebody. That storyline wasn't fully embellished upon in the demo.
Okay.
The other one is to reclaim fragments of your soul. That doesn't happen in this demo. And the other one is to assist Death in missions that he sends you on.
Does that happen in the demo?
It does happen in the demo.
Okay.
Yeah, he is essentially your mission giver.
Okay.
Death is kind of cool. Death is kind of what you would expect in Death lore. Is he just like he brings the dead and delivers their souls to where they're supposed to go. But being the mission giver and kind of the hub world is Death's world. They call it Haven. Haven exists just outside of Limbo in its own plane, where you are able to add effectively what amounts to talent points. And God, the gameplay that we're watching here is fucking miserable.
Just trying to jump over a bit.
Yeah, and he's not even supposed to be jumping. He's supposed to be dashing across. I'm sorry for the visuals.
Okay.
Yeah, so don't. This playthrough is not the one you should be paying attention to, because I never had a problem with that particular area. It was not hard. That was an issue with the player. So it is a roguelite, in that during your run, you do get temporary upgrades throughout. You grow stronger the longer you're able to survive. This takes place in arenas, which I'll get to as one of my biggest disappointments of this demo in just a little bit. But it's an arena style roguelite. You enter an area through a portal, you fight a bunch of guys, and then you go through another portal. Each portal has its own objective. So you have blueprint portals, you have soul essence portals, and basically the reward at the end of your arena fight is going to be the thing that was promised at the entryway to the portal.
So it's like Hades.
Essentially. And those resources are then used for upgrades, talent points, some of which persist through your deaths, others that do not. There are weapon upgrades. These seem to be permanent weapon upgrades. They lasted through a couple deaths for me. Now, I actually had to, on my second playthrough, I actually had to die on purpose every time I died. The game...
Oh, that easy?
Yeah. The ramp up in difficulty is really quick per arena, but I found ways to cheese it, and I'll get into that as well. So the gunplay is adequate.
It looks mid.
I would say it looks a little sloppy.
Now, this is your initial weapon, so it is the weakest weapon that you get, even just during the demo. And it's only 6 shots, which changes later. That gun gets certainly more powerful, and then you are also given a double-barrel shotgun, which is supremely overpowered in comparison to this 6-shooter. Now, you get that through crafting it. There's a craft bench, essentially, inside Haven, in which you're able to craft new guns, and you get like a third eye, is what it's called. It allows you to see enemies through walls, gives them a red outline so they're easier to tell from one another, which is kind of important in this game. You do end up swarmed pretty quickly, 5 or 6 arena fights into your run. Being able to differentiate between mobs is important, and this item was too. At the end of the day, the gunplay is mid. It's fine. It is you point here and it shoots that thing. The novelty of being in Limbo, it's novel. I think the ambiance is cool. I think the art direction is cool. The graphics are fine. They're nothing to write home about, but they're good, especially for a studio this is their first game. I think the progression is good. And on my second playthrough, I actually found myself having a lot of fun. I continued to play through the game after I finished recording and totally completed the demo. Everything there was available to do in the demo. Yeah. Oh yeah, and there are plenty of meta currencies. In fact, there's even a pirate in the game that takes his own unique currency. Then you find out later that he'll take an additional currency once you've bought all the initial early currency
Peg
things.
legs. Just collects them by the handful.
Crunchy gherkins, sir.
Crunchy.
Now, you do get power-ups as you do a single run. Those power-ups do go away at death.
Yeah, that's a pretty standard roguelike.
Yeah,
sure.
Standard fare. This guy's doing exactly what I did and wanted to see if I could go into a place that it didn't look like you can. You can't. But yeah, the gameplay loop is fun. It's standard. It's really standard roguelite fare. At the end of the day, it is. Does this do anything new? No. But did I find myself having fun? Ultimately, yes. And I think at the right price point, this game I could recommend. I think depending on the length of the overall game, I could recommend this at $20 or fewer dollars. And I think that's a good recommendation because the demo did leave me wanting more after my second playthrough. it did take a little bit of getting used to, but once I started getting used to the gunplay, once I started getting used to the bad hands, in the bad hand animations, it drives me actually fucking crazy in this game. Whoever made the hands,
the hand animations,
it's really bad.
It's rough, dude. It's rough.
It's really bad.
Every time I see another one, I'm just like, God, I hate that reload, and man. Just spin the barrel real fast or something.
Yeah. And that's for every character for me. But
real quick, let me spit out an idea here
Sure.
that I've been mulling about the last 3 demo idea or games we talked about. When someone's learning to draw or play an instrument, they're going to go through that phase of being bad.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes of all time about anything is the first step to being sort of good at something is sucking at it.
Yeah.
Right. Now, when it comes to video games and you're making one, very rarely is it just one person. So you got multiple people and they might not have worked together before. They might be new to the industry.
Yeah.
And they're trying to break into the most expensive money-making form of media there is.
Yeah.
And there is literally dozens of games released every day. And the problem is that it costs a lot of money. You got these games if you have a company, even 5-10 people, they all got to be paid. So the idea of putting in your time and making your first game like Black Skylands or this Soul Reaver game or the Antarctic one you did, like you got to reasonably charge $15-20 to hopefully make some kind of a profit.
Oh yeah. I mean, at the very least, recover your cost.
You have games that are $20-15 that people will play for 1,000 hours because they're good, because they're made by just technically better game devs or for whatever reason, right? So I think when it comes to games like this, you have to ask yourself one of two things. One, does the game do something new or mix two elements together or find some niche that is extremely satisfying or fun and or engaging? Or does it seem like the devs have that certain je ne sais quoi, that moxie, that chutzpah that's going to mean in the next couple of games are going to get really good? And I think those are the kind of metrics we should be looking at these games. Because, it kind of looks like a Unity tech engine demo.
Yeah.
None of the animations are perfect. It's not doing any new mechanics, but you find yourself enjoying it. Now, I mean, part of that as a roguelike is a safe genre. You know, players know what they're getting into when they play it. The devs know what they're getting into when they make it. So you got a nice baseline. But if you were able to play a demo and you didn't really like it, but then something made you play it again and you liked it more, that's a pretty good sign.
It is.
Right?
Now, to be fair, the thing that made me play it was I just needed to record some footage so we can talk over it. But now, that said, I did find myself enjoying it. And I think it does have a little bit of something that you led to early on in your point, is that sometimes you just need to get good. And I did find myself, having played through it and starting to understand the mechanics of the game the first time, the second time, that get good locked in. I was getting better at the game. And as I got better, I found all of my minor quibbles about this demo a little bit more tolerable and found the gameplay loop to be pretty fun. I won't say it knocked my socks off. I don't think it did anything exceptionally well. I don't think that it did anything exceptionally new. But what it did felt pretty solid, and I think they've got a game on their hands. Now, the release date is to be announced. They still have as much time as they need to work out the quirks and make this game what it could be. That said, I think if this were long enough of a title to get you 15 to 20 hours, I think $20 would be fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a problem spending $20 on it. Because what was there, I found myself having fun in. I wanted to learn a little bit more about Haven, Death, the rules, because it does actually establish rules fairly early on that I think, based on what the demo is telling me, is that they're going to explore that further on too.
It's going to have a bit of a narrative in a roguelike game.
Yeah, and it's nice. You have clear objectives in the beginning of the game. You don't experience any of the completion of those objectives in the demo.
Yeah.
The demo is relatively short. You can't play this for more than an hour before you've done all of the content there is to do. But I didn't get to experience all of the power-ups. There were things, or there was one thing that I didn't get to craft before the demo ended on me. Now, the demo did end, but it still let me keep playing, and I did keep playing. So I found myself legitimately having fun and locked in for a little bit longer than I intended on doing a recording for. So can I recommend it? It's a soft recommend. I think at the right price point, it can totally be a game to throw in your library.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, I think we found a nice little gamut of games there.
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Not thankful for Josh destroying the chair.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for ripping hardcore ass. Josh, you have one more story.
I do have one more story to talk about. As for many of us, some of us, Starfield is going to be available early access September 1st. But for one, Derren Harris, boy, could he just not wait. He went ahead and got himself close to a cool dozen copies of Starfield.
How so?
He stole them. He broke into a warehouse.
No, he worked in a shipping facility.
He worked in a shipping facility. Stole them. Took them right out of the FedEx area there or whatever. And then not only did he play for 45 minutes and post it on YouTube to just shattering numbers before it got pulled, he then started auctioning off the extra copies of the ones that he nabbed. And so
the dude was making TikToks of himself stealing them.
Yeah,
and
it was
showed parts of the warehouse.
Yep, it was a whole thing. And as it turns out, that is just too much for Shelby County, Tennessee Sheriff's Office to handle. So just a few days ago, he was picked up. About 4 days. They let him have it for 4 days. It's too much. So he is he's got a couple of felonies there, charged for between $2,500 and $10,000 worth of stolen property. There is a couple of a misdemeanor. Now, because they went to his house and then they found, a gun and some pot.
All the other things he's stolen?
Yeah, they like Mr. Harris is in a little bit of trouble here, all for the want of. He should have realized this is Starfield, not Fallout, man. What are you doing? You can't be auctioning off stuff like that now. But yeah, he a fun little saga right before Starfield drops.
Did see like 4 30-second clips of Starfield gameplay today on Twitter, just on a whim, and I wonder if those were him.
It's very possible. Now, a lot of people have gotten pre-release copies, even earlier than the pre-order copies. So they're like the reviewer copies have been out for nearly a month now, and
they can't just show raw footage of the game, though.
No,
right?
but a lot of the times that's where the leaks come from. So they make
this is like Handycam looking at a CRT.
Right.
Footage.
Yeah. So, but sometimes the leaks do come from, unfortunately, journalists that get early copies. They make a new Twitter handle and they're the first ones to leak something.
Smurf it.
Yeah. So it does happen. It does happen.
Well, Daryl.
Derren Harris.
Derren Harris.
Yep.
He won't be daring anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Nope.
Now, before we end things tonight, I do have one more demo to talk about.
Oh.
This one is going to be a little bit shorter because it's really easily explained, but goddamn, boys, if I did not have fun with this demo. This is a little game called Tempest Rising, and we've talked about this a couple times in the podcast. This is the Command & Conquer / Red Alert clone that we have all been waiting for. This, to me, boys, is the return of the RTS genre into the mainstream, potentially, or a little bit more mainstream than it has been in recent years. But boy, oh boy, it doesn't play like Command & Conquer. Now, it doesn't have the tongue-in-cheek Command & Conquer style, right? You don't have a Zod, you don't have a Yuri, you don't have a... right, as far as I've been introduced. I have only played one half of the demo so far. So in the demo, I don't know if there will be more factions, but in the demo, there are 2 factions. There is the GDF, the Global Defense Force, and then there is the Tempest
Bad Guys.
Bad Guys. That one. I played as a global
TBG.
defense force because I always tend to play do the America run first, and then what is effectively the Soviet run or the China run
I
later.
love how they just brazenly called them the GDF.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was in Command and Conquer.
Yeah.
Same name.
So, I find myself playing as a global defense force, and Jesus, dude, does it not play like Command and Conquer? It is Command and Conquer without the name. It delivers even the units are so similarly made. You get a mobile defense fortress that you plop down as you would in any other
Nice.
Command and Conquer.
If I remember right, they even call it a mobile construction vehicle.
Yeah.
MCV.
The MCV.
Yeah.
So it's fucking fantastic. So you start the demo out as landing in what should be a fairly safe zone. Bad guys, as far as you know, don't have a presence there. But you're put on a sortie because there's some intel that says maybe they do hold a presence there. You find yourself in frozen tundra, and very shortly after you land with your 4 GIs, you run into bad guy number 1. You make it a little bit farther forward, and you make it into 2 bad guys, and then they drop you another helidrop, which is they introduce the different units separately, which is a nice touch.
Time to understand how the grenadiers of the bazooka guys work.
So you have GIs, you have drone pilots, and you have grenadiers in this demo. You do get what's known as a specialist in the form of a medic. But eventually, through making your way through some of the map, you eventually get your MCV. You make your base. You put down the buildings that are available to you in this first level. I'm sure they're going to have lots and lots more building as the game goes on. But you are limited to your production facility that's harvesting Tempest, your MCV, a satellite dish for intel, a barracks, and power plants. The kind of the essential, right?
Yes, sir.
But you are allowed to make conscript your GIs, grenadiers, drone pilots. There are plenty of cool, well-placed explodey barrels to shoot through in the campaign. God, guys, it was fun. It was just straight up fun. I haven't played an RTS since, I don't know, the last one I probably played was StarCraft 2, but I haven't played a new one since Red Alert 3.
Yeah.
And I am so elated to essentially just pick up and go where I left off. It feels modern. The graphics are great. The gameplay is exactly what you expect out of a Command and Conquer style RTS. And like I said, this is Command and Conquer without the label.
Yeah.
It straight up is. I mean, even to we'll go on to they don't have it in this trailer, unfortunately. But at the end, as they're delivering you this is the end of the demo, you get what almost sounds like Red Alert music. I wouldn't call it Hell March 4, but in the same vein. And
this is as close as we could make it without being sued.
Exactly. God, and it feels so good.
I did watch one of my streamers, Spot a Cat, play through this full first mission.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I didn't get to play it, but I did watch it. And so yeah, I'm on the same page in that this is definitely at worst a love letter to Command and Conquer, right? Yeah. Well, maybe at worst would be a straight up a ripoff, but
yeah, I guess
it's
so. It kind of is. But I have no complaints about. I have no complaints about that.
We really haven't gotten one.
Yeah, we haven't gotten one. Westwood Studios doesn't exist in the way it did before, so we're not getting one. No. Now, this is made by Slipgate Ironworks, who I had never heard of, and also 2B Games. It's being published by 3D Realms.
Okay, still on, kicking.
Slipgate Ironworks is known for Phantom Fury, Combustion, Warpause, Iron Fury Aftershock, Graven, Wrath, Aeon of Ruin, Ion Fury, Ghost Runner, Daymare 1998, and Ancestors Legacy.
Okay, so is that the publisher?
That is one of 2 developers that are co-developing this game.
I know Graven and another one you mentioned.
Ghost Runner, probably.
Yeah. So yeah, they definitely have it's a wide category.
It's a huge resume, right?
Yeah.
But it's also from what I understand, Slipgate Ironworks was built around a bunch of developers from now defunct development companies. So,
yeah. Pretty common.
Yeah, super common in the industry. People are moving all about in the industry. 2B Games, I'd also never heard of, but they are known for, let's see, Ancient Space, Ancestor's Legacy, Colot, Afterfall, Insanity. Also, there was Painkiller, Hell and Damnation.
Painkiller was fun.
I loved Painkiller. It was a great game. War Mongrels and Get Even. Okay. A bunch of games that I hadn't heard of effectively, but I did look into their portfolios a little bit, and most of these games seem kind of gotcha-y, and there's a few mobile games mixed in there, and then there's a few like casino games and that kind of stuff. So they're a storied couple development teams, but dude, they're delivering on the RTS genre. I feel everything felt balanced, everything felt fun. You do kind of roll through this mission, but you can see where things get progressive. Yeah, you can see where things get progressively more difficult. And honestly, if I didn't have any RTS experience, this might have been difficult. If I didn't know, because they really don't talk about deploying your MCV. They don't give you much of a tutorial.
Attack moving, stuff
right?
Like that.
Yeah, different units are faster than others. Like your medic, who is like indispensably
so only your healer.
Yeah, he's your only healer, and you can only have one out per map, is what it looks like. Super important, but he's slower than everybody else. The only complaint that I have is a complaint that every other RTS that I've ever played has, is that pathing for some of your GIs or some of your units was a little bit funky at times. They'd try to go, like there'd be one that tries to go around the wrong way, right? But that's it. And that's a complaint that I've had in RTSs all along.
Yeah.
So really a complaint of the genre and not of the game.
We talked about this a bit last week or a week before, and actually something I want to touch on real quick. If you got a game dev studio and 25% or less of their games are mobile gotcha games or casino games, they're doing that because they need money.
Yeah.
Like, do not judge a company if, only maybe a quarter, maybe at most like a third of their games are that, because they got to get paid.
Or if their first few,
they got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's totally fine. It's really interesting that they so brazenly copy the old school Red Alert 2 style RTS gameplay, because we've had, again, it's coming up again, 20 years of experience in games of this nature between StarCraft 2 and a handful of other RTSs. We talked about that other one just the other day that was a really cool Total Annihilation style one. We forget the name of it.
Yeah.
But I follow a couple YouTubers who do RTS game, Giant Grant Games, Day9, and some others I'm not remembering off the top of my head. And there's a lot of discussion about where does RTS fit nowadays. It is a genre that it's like a dead evolutionary branch, because all the chunky, nice parts of RTSs were arguably taken and slotted into other genres, MOBAs and arena brawlers and role-playing games and things like that. So to make a game that is trying to do this Battlefield Commander where there's a lot of buttons, a lot of different things to do, and to so brazenly just make it exactly seemingly how it was 20 years ago. It's a bold choice, Cotton.
That's ballsy.
Right?
Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out. I would love to get some more of the game. I'd love to see another few levels and see if there's anything, whether it's like user interface or quality of life or types of events or different uses for fog of war or terrain or height advantage or weapon types that, makes us different than what it seemingly is, which is just Red Alert with a new skin.
The demo says no, but I'll leave judgments for later.
It's very bold of them just to be like, we make Command Conquer.
Yes, we make Command Conquer.
We want to play it again, and we don't want to keep installing it.
But dude, the passion, if that's what they did, I feel the passion, because I mean, it's a clone, but it's fucking well done, right? Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if 90% of this dev team is from Westwood Studios at this point. Like,
could be.
It almost feels like stolen assets level of copy. And
the Tiberium's red instead of green.
Totally. Yeah. And goddamn, it's fucking good.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize that I've been craving a classic RTS like this as much as I have been, because as soon as I got into it, I was fucking into
home.
it.
Yeah.
And I played through the GDF twice. The GDF is because I played it earlier and then I wanted to go in and get some footage.
Yeah.
But while I was recording footage, I was just lost in the game again. And like, I didn't do anything different. I just played it again, and it was just as fun the second time around. And it's the introductory level. Like, it shouldn't be as fun as it is, and it is. Yeah. And I just this is 100% nostalgia here. But like in a good way, man. It's been so long since we've gotten a mainstream RTS and gotten and that an RTS has gotten any public coverage. This has been covered multiple times now in big game shows like Summer Game Fest.
Really just been the last couple Age of Empires that came out. You know, there is one quality of life thing that is going to entirely sell this game for 3 people in the entire world. When your refineries die, the refinery trucks automatically explode. So the enemy doesn't get to run away with a single truck that you have to hunt down and find
my God,
to destroy.
True, dude.
Yeah.
We should test it. Let's test it.
Right.
on my next playthrough, I won't make any units. I'll make sure they all die early, and then once I deploy my resource gatherer, I'll let you know.
All right.
But I think that's it, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, it's been a fun one. Really enjoyed myself this podcast. I love talking about upcoming games, especially demos, and then we've got good games. We've got good games potentially on the horizon with Starfield left. Mm-hmm. It feels good to be kind of rolling. Like, we're swimming in games right now, and it feels so good.
I need a floaty.